For your ears only for the week of May 4th, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Melissa Exelberth with a quote from the news. You are shedding data everywhere. That was senior White House advisor John D. Podesta, chief author of a new administration report recommending government limits on how private companies like Google and Facebook can use information from and about their customers online, seen in part as an effort to shift debate away from surveillance by the National Security Agency. But the administration also refused a demand for new limits on NSA surveillance activities on German soil, ending efforts to remake intelligence relationships between the two countries. Now this.
A lot that you want to broadcast that you're associating with black people. You don't have to. You could do whatever you want. You could sleep with them, you could bring them in, you could do whatever you want. The little I ask you is not to promote it on that and not to bring them to my games.
Effective immediately, I am banning Mr. Sterling for life from any association with the Clippers organization or the NBA. As for Mr. Sterling's ownership interest in the Clippers, I will urge the Board of Governors to exercise its authority to force a sale of the team.
It was a scandal made for the media at the 24/7 pace of cable news, complete with contradictions, legal complexity, and a touch of Casablanca, as in the way so many involved were shocked that Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling was a ranting bigot whose behavior towards blacks as a landlord once drew a record legal penalty. In fact, the leaked phone call with a gal pal didn't include very nasty words about blacks, only that the 80-something Sterling didn't like V. Stiviano, as the half-black Vanessa Perez is now known, posting pictures of herself with them, including basketball superstar Magic Johnson, or bringing them to Clippers games, where there is no shortage of blacks in the seats or on the court.
Many saw the scandal as yet another reminder of racism in the U.S. today. It followed closely libertarian rancher Cliven Bundy's suggestion that slavery was better than welfare, and conservative Congressman Paul Ryan's complaint about generations of men in the inner cities not even thinking about working. Others wondered about the propriety of making private conversation grounds for the forced sale demanded by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, even if it nets Sterling a huge profit. That is, if Sterling's well-known love for litigation doesn't introduce roadblocks involving his ownership through a family trust or a potential divorce that could raise issues of community property. To consider all that and more for your ears only, we're joined again by Boston Globe investigative sports reporter and commentator Shira Springer. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Some other commentators have suggested that there's more to the leak that started this whole thing than we know. Is there any reason to think that Sterling, now reportedly fighting cancer, actually wanted all this to come out as his team reaches a new peak of performance and presumably price?
Listen, I think we all can agree that he's a racist, but I don't think he's that crazy. I mean, this would be a sort of a very odd way to back your way into the sale of your team. And this is somebody who has spent a ton of his own money, albeit a small percentage of his net worth, but a lot of money burnishing his image by donating to various charities and basically buying a good reputation. And then to have this come out and to use this as a ploy to sort of drive up the price of your team or to somehow sell it, I think there's far too many conspiracy theories out there.
What about the blind eye towards Sterling's bad behavior in the past by the NBA, Clippers players and coaches, the Los Angeles NAACP, whose leader had to resign after withdrawing what would have been its second Lifetime Achievement Award to Sterling? Weren't they all happy or at least willing to take his money?
Yeah, I think in some ways, it's certainly not the most disturbing part of the story. Obviously, Sterling's words are the most disturbing part of the story, but I think that is a really disturbing and troubling aspect of this, which is how many people looked the other way when Sterling threw money at that. And there is a long line, starting with the Los Angeles NAACP, and for that matter, as you mentioned, the NBA, who knew of his discriminatory housing practices for decades and did nothing. I mean, you say shocked, mockingly that, nobody had any doubt that these were Sterling's words when they came out on the tape. Everybody knew this guy's reputation going in. Everybody knew the lawsuits that had come previously with other employers, with the housing situation. They knew what was going on here, and I think it is troubling to see that, one, the NAACP turned a blind eye. And then also, you have to wonder about some of the coaches and the players. I mean, as upset as they were, they knew exactly, for lack of a better term, who they were getting in bed with when they signed those large contracts. I mean, I understand the desire to make as much money as you can, and I understand the desire of a coach like Doc Rivers to not only make a large of money, but also put him in a position where he could be coaching a championship contending team. But all of that, they had to realize comes at a price when you're dealing with a guy in the ownership position like Donald Sterling.
Well, do you think Sterling's well-known litigious nature makes it safe for NBA Commissioner Adam Silver to so quickly echo players' demands for the sale of the team, something he knew might not happen so easily but was pretty good PR for the NBA?
I think Adam Silver really had no choice but to go to the full extent of his power to do what he could. You cannot have an owner spewing racist thoughts. And, while he said in his press conference that Sterling's past history didn't factor into the lifetime ban, I think Adam Silver, he wasn't necessarily backed into a corner, but he had to go to the utmost that the law allowed. Did it also happen to be good PR for the NBA? Does it also look good for the new commissioner to take a strong stance and to go along with what many of the players were calling for? Absolutely. But I think really there was only one way Adam Silver could go, because anything less than a lifetime ban, anything less than putting the wheels in motion to force Sterling out of the ownership position was going to fall short and draw this whole situation out. And you heard from players that if there wasn't a strong stance, if Adam Silver didn't take the strong stance that he did, then they would have boycotted playoff games. And once you get to that point, all bets are off.
What about the idea that instead of forcing Sterling to say goodbye to his team, the NBA should arrange free agency for all Clippers players so the team could say goodbye to him?
Yeah, I thought that was an idea first floated by the Houston Rockets owner, Leslie Alexander, and I thought that was just brilliant. I mean, because you're not necessarily stripping Donald Sterling of his team, you're letting his team walk away. And I liked that idea because I thought it would make both a strong statement and serve the purpose of sort of disowning Sterling in reverse. But I think, feasibly, legally, it's more complicated to do that than to actually have the owners take a vote where 3/4 of them have to approve to force Sterling to sell the team.
Absent forcing him to sell, do you think that many on his team, and absent an arrangement for a free agency, do you think many on the team would really refuse to play if there is no sale immediately or reasonably soon? Do you think fans will begin to stay home and more sponsors quit?
I think this needs to be resolved by the start of next season. I really do think that they have to have a plan in place for Sterling, that is, to sell the team or somehow wrest the ownership from him before the start of next season. I think if this bleeds into the start of next season, I think the first thing you'll see is sponsors backing away. And I think there could potentially be some fans who say, you know what, I'm not for this guy, and I'll wait until this storm clears before I come back to the arena to watch the Clippers play.
Thank you. Boston Globe investigative sports reporter and commentator Shira Springer.
Quote from the news: "For a state that executes people, they are awfully bad at it." That was death penalty lawyer David Dow on a failed Oklahoma execution by lethal injection, though the prisoner died soon after of a heart attack.
Next, the Ukraine crisis, Putin's people, power, and plans, for your ears only.